beautiful viewers out there, and welcome to J Space, the space where you can talk about anything and everything regarding the self. I hope you all had a lovely day. At the top of the show, I wanted to remind you all to and subscribe, hit that notification bell, so you can get all of our monthly episodes. Because we're gonna be uploading every single month, at least once a month. Okay. And first, I wanted to talk about last episode. We had a very interesting episode where we broke down friendships and how me and Autumn essentially look at friendships, right? And one of the things I said was, well, at least my take, was having levels of friendship. And I remember, Autumn, you were saying that you saw relationships essentially, or friendships essentially like a relationship. Sort of take it, what are the things that you wouldn't accept in a relationship with your partner?
hmm
Um, and obviously, so I thought that was really interesting. But even discussing maybe even further, something that I found interesting was one of the takes that I had that it's gonna allow us to sort of jump off into discussing what we want today, which is giving too much of yourself. Now, one of the examples I gave was I had this friend, and I was always there for her. Any issues, I was there when she needed to talk. I was there when she needed to sort of, I guess vent. Vent is the same thing as talking, but about some very important stuff. And I always felt like I was always giving emotionally, but I felt like I was never sort of receiving back when it came my time. So yeah, this kind of leads into this topic of today, which is giving too much of yourself, or to any issue. And so we're gonna discuss it in three different issues. But first things first, I did want to talk about Autumn because we didn't really even get into this. When was an experience that you gave too much of yourself in a friendship?
Off the top of my head, it would be giving somebody who I was very, very close with too many opportunities to, oh, how do I want to say this? Just giving them the out too many times, I guess, is where I'm trying to go with that. I feel like if you constantly hear about a friend who is saying bad things behind your back and you go to them and talk to them about it, obviously that might happen, every so often, but if it's a pattern and you get to a point where you're starting to feel like you can't tell them things, or if you aren't present in a situation, then you're going to be brought up. I had situations like that, and to me, I put in the effort of being their friend and seeing them as my friend and giving them the benefit of the doubt, and then also making efforts to make them feel comfortable after the fact. And I say that in the sense of like, after I would find out about them, talking behind my back, and I would confront them, it always kind of got turned back around to me, and then I would make extra efforts to make sure that we were okay, even though they were the one who did the wrong, if that makes sense. I think I'm a people pleaser sometimes. And then I also just I don't really like disrupting the peace, and if it's something that I feel like I can get over, then it's something I don't necessarily want to draw too much attention to, which I think has faults to it, because sometimes you do need to talk about those small things because they add up. But that's the first instance that comes to mind, is just, being the one to always be bridging the gap when there's a tear, or being the one that when you're hurt, you're still making the efforts to make the relationship work, or you're making efforts to make them feel comfortable for the wrong that they did. I don't know. That's too much effort, I think. And kind of, yeah, to answer your question, the first one that came to mind.
So, giving too much of yourself in the way that when somebody wronged you, you constantly forgave them is sort of to sum up how you feel, right? Like that's the sort of that point, right? Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
sorry to cut you off,
No,
but
you're
I guess
fine.
to add to that, because I want to be a forgiving person, but to forgive them but then not draw boundaries. That's where I think I messed up. Was I should have forgiven them because I did see them as a friend and I wanted to see the best in them, but then I never drew boundaries after that. And that's where I was at fault. I should have put up those boundaries. Not that I shouldn't have forgiven them.
Yeah, no, no. I think that I like the clarification. um, but to be honest, I mean, oftentimes, right, it is good to forgive and forget, right? Like holding grudges, for example, or it's always something that's going to eat away at you when you don't forgive somebody that's wronged you in some sort of way. So I think that like you're saying, that is a good factor, but one of the things is the boundaries or allowing yourself to forgive someone and forget. But sometimes that even includes forgetting that person. You know what I mean? I think that
Yes.
sometimes you have to, right? Like we don't we find this way to forgive and forget, and we think that that means that okay, we have to keep that person around. It's like, no, I could
Mm,
forgive this person, I can forget the situation, but I could also forget Sally or Susan or Timothy or whoever, whatever name is out there, right? It
mm-hmm.
doesn't matter who you are, that other person on the other side, you can sort of forget them, right? Especially if there was something that they did that really harmed you, right? Because I think we come to the realization that that person is more toxic to keep around than to sort of remove from your life and allow them to be happy. Because here's the thing, sometimes like our happiness isn't exactly the other person's happiness, you know what I mean? Like maybe they like the chaos and the insanity of the environment that they sort of set for themselves, and that's okay, I guess, but it's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you forgive that person, that's why it's important to sort of literally even forget them, or you love them, but you're gonna love them at a distance and not allow them to sort of interrupt that life, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you're sort of building for yourself. But what would you sort of do in the situation that let's say obviously it's a friend that wasn't worth forgetting, right?
Mm.
And you forgave them, but you're constantly continuing to sort of do this. I know you said set boundaries, but what else would you do in that situation? Like, what did you do in this friendship, like sort of issue, I guess,
In
or
this particular
situation?
issue, I did it wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't put up the boundaries. I kept, you know, trying to interact with them in the same level of trust that we had had before. And I kept giving them information and telling them things about my life and sharing things with them. And it kept being used against me. Or I kept finding out about them talking about me. Or it kept, being spread to people that didn't need it. It was more of a gossip thing. And I don't know why. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I had this burden that the relationship was on me. And if they were acting like that and if they were spreading those things and saying those things about me, then it was saying more about my character because I wasn't good enough or I wasn't being a good enough friend where they felt like they had to have or they felt like they had to show that they were confidants, you know? And that's such a weird way of viewing that, but that is how I viewed it. I think I tend to be more shame based a lot of the times in the fact of if something's going wrong, my first thought is, well, what did I do wrong? And it takes me a while to get on the other side of that and be like, even if I did wrong, I can take responsibility in that, but I should also give merit to where other people did wrong because if I don't, then I'll continually put myself in situations like I did in those friendships, and it kind of just got to a point where the disrespect and their uncaring nature towards me got to a point where it was just so blatantly hurtful, And I was dating somebody at the time, and the very first time that they met him, they said something very, very not kind about who I was directly to this guy. And at that moment, I was like, these people don't care about me. Because if they're going to sit there and the first time that they meet somebody I'm dating, instead of building me up, they're tearing me down in front of him, then these aren't good people. And it was, I'm obviously not with him anymore, but not because of them, just other reasons. But it was that relationship that got me away from those people because of how blatant they were disrespectful about me, to me, towards him for no reason at all. And it just kind of showed me it was weird because it took them being mean to him for me to see like that's how they're treating me too. And it was I kind of woke up at that point. So I haven't had situations since then where I've been able to deploy this knowledge that I have. I mean, to that degree. But I think now, as I am, I go into friendships with a little bit more trepidation. And that sounds bad. I'm not trying to go into it with fear, but moreover, in the sense, like I said in the last podcast, viewing it as I would a romantic relationship. Who is this person? I'm gonna wait to see what their character shows me. I'm gonna wait to give it time before I claim them as my best friend. I'm gonna put in efforts and see if they give me efforts back. Because it's like there's a level of detachment with friendships. And so it's easy to just like latch onto someone and say they're my friend. But no matter the level of detachment, they still affect your life a lot. Because who you're spending your time with is who you become and how you interact with people and how you see the world. And so I think I'm just a lot more careful with who I spend my time and energy on and who I claim to be my friends. It was very long winded, and I'm sorry.
No, no, that's fine. I think I really like that, right? I mean, this really ties together with a lot of what we discussed before, right? How do we filter out the individuals that are our friends, and what is the big impact that that sort of takes on our lifestyle? I feel like a lot of people out there don't necessarily, um, how would you say, they don't necessarily have that consideration, especially like, I mean, if you're a viewer and you're listening and you're a younger age or at any age, to be honest, we could learn these lessons at any age. Um, but let's say you're going through these situations where you're not filtering or you're not really emotionally considering the friend groups that you have and the circle that's around you. I mean, especially in like an autumn situation, you're putting yourself in the detriment of feeling horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all it'll take. You wonder why you're sad. You wonder why you're going through a particular situation where you're just feeling emotionally drained a lot, yet you're surrounded by people. That should be a big indicator that the people around you aren't necessarily, the best for you. And I mean an
Mm-hmm.
indicator as if, like, have you really looked at the friends around you? Not that they have to have something to always offer, right? But are these friends that, like, I mean, we discussed in the last episode, and you even mentioned here that reflect you well, right? Are these friends that
Mm-hmm.
are, how would you going to say, if somebody looks at you, what is the sort of lasting imprint that they leave behind? And are you okay with that? Are you okay with,
Mm-hmm.
your friends sort of being particularly destructive or in like Autumn's case where they're extremely rude and always like to sort of pass blame at others? Um, how does that necessarily reflect on you, and are you okay with that? And if you are okay with that, I think we gotta that's a whole nother
Why?
issue, right? Yeah, that's a looking into the self and reflecting on
Mm-hmm.
yourself. But yeah, it's important to sort of suss out these relationships starting with your friendship. um and yeah, giving too much of yourself. I mean, you know, I maybe need some advice in my particular situation where I was always emotionally being available for my friend. Um, and, you know, my sort of solution was to try and filter out the person, understand that I can't necessarily count on them. But what would you have me do about it? Because I don't think I necessarily got your take last episode, and I kind of want to get more of that. What would your advice for me be in that particular station or situation? Sorry, or maybe let's say somebody else is going through the same situation I was.
So, in the same situation where you feel like you're constantly there for them anytime that they're needing it, but whenever you need them, they aren't showing up for you.
Yes.
Okay. In that situation, I would say really take into account how you feel when you're around that person. Do you feel seen? Do you feel accepted? Do you feel respected? Do you feel like they're taking genuine interest in you? And if you're not feeling those things, then take a step back and then ask yourself, why am I putting so much effort into this? Do I genuinely value them as a friend? Am I getting something out of it? You know, I mean, sometimes we like to listen to people complain because we like to be the helper. We like to be somebody who gives good advice or somebody that people can lean on. It's kind of self serving in a sense. And sitting with those questions and getting really, really honest with yourself. And then, whatever the answer is to that, make a change based off of that. If it is that you truly do like them as a friend and you want to be there for them, maybe it's worth having a conversation of like, hey, I just feel like you're not taking the same kind of interest in me. Or I feel like whenever I needed you, in this situation or this situation, it didn't turn out the way I was hoping it would. And if you don't feel like it's a friendship that you think is worth keeping, then, just like gracefully fade out. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't need to be something dramatic. It doesn't need to be a conversation. It's just like the next time they have something to say or need you, just you can't because you're busy or you've got somebody else that you're hanging out with. Um, yeah, I think it's important to audit your relationships. And I heard a quote that said, if I look at who you choose to be your partner, I'll see how much you love yourself. And I kind of love that aspect towards friends as well. If you show me who you are choosing to invest your energy and your time in and how they treat you, you're showing me how much you love yourself. Because if you're hanging out with people who are using you for the benefits that you give, or who speak to you very rudely, or who just don't respect you at all, that's a reflection of how you view yourself. That's a reflection of how you treat yourself. And so maybe look into that, and instead of asking what they're doing wrong, kind of turn that back on yourself and ask why you're accepting that or why you think you're not worth investing in or caring for or respecting.
I like that take. I like that take a lot. You know, I mean, that opens my eyes to even myself and how I handle relationships or friendships because I never thought about it that way, right? Like it's essentially how you're treating yourself.
It is. I think
um,
every
yeah.
relationship you have stems from the relationship you first have with yourself. And if that's not good, then the relationships in your life aren't going to be good. Barring family, you can't really help that too much. But I really think that to be the case. Just if somebody's bad in your life, maybe look at how you're viewing yourself and re-monitor the outlook that you have of yourself, and be have my therapist always tells me, have more compassion for yourself.
Yeah, right. Because I think that to a certain degree, if you don't have compassion for you, there's a lot of people, and not to be pessimistic, but there's a lot of people there that won't have that compassion for you, right? I
No.
think that we always pass the buck, so to speak. or the responsibility on other people to sort of treat us and show us how great we are or how wonderful we are, right? Or how beautiful.
Mm.
And we fail to realize that a huge important part of ourselves, um, or a huge important part of of just how we emotionally feel as ourselves, right? We're the first sort of defense
Mhm.
against the world, and we're the last defense. We're the first defense, we're the last defense, and sometimes we're the only defense against the crushing, soul crushing issues of the world, right? I think that sometimes we need to understand the importance that we will define how we feel. And some
Mhm.
people, it's like, well, because here's the thing, in life, if you need a change, that's all based off of what your effort. Nobody's gonna change you but you.
Mhm.
If we're feeling depressed, no matter what somebody can say, sometimes it's an issue with who? Ourselves, right? Maybe it's a
Mhm.
chemical imbalance, or maybe we need therapy, or maybe we need a self reflection. It again, the buck stops with us. It begins with us and it ends with us. And so we need to essentially love ourselves. We need to look at ourselves. um, it's always the center of how we conduct our relationships, how we conduct ourselves, right? So
Mhm.
look at yourself, reflect. How do you love yourself,
Yeah,
care
don't
for
be harsh
yourself.
about it.
Yeah. um I think that we fail to open the dialogue within our mind fortress.
Mhm.
Go into the brain and have like talk with yourself, have those inner thoughts.
Mhm.
Because if not, like, sometimes, not everybody's going to be there for you, and so you have to be there for
No.
yourself. I know it might be a
I
lot
find
of repeating, but
I find as well that especially in friendships we have this idea of this longevity idea of, well, I've been friends with them for 5 years, or I've been friends with them since kindergarten, or we said that we were going to grow old together and we were going to have children together and they were going to be cousins. And I know for me personally, those were all hopes and dreams I had with this friend group. I had been friends with them for years on years, had been through a lot of pivotal life moments with each and every one of them and them for me. And it was really hard, and still to this day is very hard to think about the fact that I'm, gonna have children and they're not gonna call those people their aunts and uncles. I'm gonna get married again, and I probably, I know I won't. I'm not inviting them to the wedding. And it's just really, to go back to giving too much, I think a part of why I held on for so long and why I kept trying and why I kept giving more of myself or giving more of my time or my energy or hearing them out was because I had this idea in my head of, no, but I want a future with them in it. And so it was really, really hard to separate the reality of, but I don't like who they are. I don't like how they're treating me. But I had this idea of, but I really love them and I loved our relationship for a very long time and I really would love to continue this relationship, just not as it is. Letting go of that hope, letting go of that, what the relationship used to look like, and realizing what it is now, and not allowing the oh, what's the word, just like the rose-colored glasses of the perfect future that you imagine for yourself to get in the way of the reality of what the situation is, and then that being the reason that you keep giving and giving and giving until, in my situation, got to a point where it was very, very hurtful. And I wish that I would have taken steps back probably a year before I finally did.
yeah, I would say, like, what is the point of having somebody destructive in your life? especially for your future, right? Your future kids.
Mhm.
Is this a lesson that you would want them to essentially learn from their quote unquote aunts and uncles, right?
Mhm.
These sort of friends in your life, and now they're sort of learning that, oh, I can treat my brother or sister or their friends with this level of disrespect. um, and I don't think that that's a good, obviously, outlook for your children. And I think maybe
Mm.
that might help, maybe put things into perspective to somebody. Is that would I be okay with having this person in my life? Is it worth it? Is it
Mhm.
worth my kid? If okay, here's even maybe a little better perspective because my brain's going. Um, but what if my kid was like this? Would I accept it?
Mm.
Maybe that might help sort of shine a light on the particular situation, and how you view your friend, right?
Mhm.
Um, Now, that also being said, maybe it's not that sort of, maybe it's not that serious, right? Maybe don't sort of
Yeah.
overly look at your friendships in that way. Because, like I said, I think there's layers to friendship or different levels to friendship where you can kind of have somebody that, maybe, is fun to be around, but they don't necessarily have always the best views or something like that. But you keep them at a distance, right? I think that there's also those levels of, like, understanding and
Mhm.
intricacies to friendship, because I do feel like certain friendships are very intricate and sort of things, like even like relationships, right? And I don't know. So it's a bit of a thought off the top of the head. But I mean, so we discuss about giving too much and the ability to give too much in friendships. Is that possible for a relationship? I mean, this is something that we really haven't discussed, is too much, like, relationships, right? We briefly brush over this idea of, like, what it is to have a significant other, and the relationships. We talked about the relationships of friendships, but let's talk about relationships. Relationships. You know what I mean? I'm talking about your
Romance.
hand holding, you're snuggling up. You're blowing kisses to the other person. Uh, let's get into that. Is it possible? I'm gonna lend the question off because you know what, Autumn, you have great insight. Okay,
Oh gosh.
I've been enjoying this, sort of stepping back and obviously giving you the platform to sort of talk. And maybe I like stepping back. Maybe people like hearing more from you than me. What can I say?
Probably not.
um, but yeah, so can you give too much of yourself in a relationship? Is that possible?
I want to say yes. And I say that with hesitation because obviously in a relationship, romantic relationship where you're sharing your life with somebody, you want to give your all. You want to give your best at every moment or any time that you can. That being said, if you're not filled up as well, it's it's not going to work. And saying that as somebody who is divorced, was married for 10 years, and at the end of it, it really, I mean, save for other things that we won't get into, it was that feeling like I wasn't as supported. Feeling like when it came to focus on me or came to, helping me out, it was the very last thing on the list. And I was given minimal effort from him, but he expected maximum effort from me. And it was never good enough. So I got very burnt out and I got to a point where I was so tired all the time. I was just, because it wasn't a relationship at that point. It was very a one-sided marriage at that point. It was like I had a roommate that I took care of and I fed him and I cleaned his house and I did all of his clothes and I made sure his social calendar was stocked and he was keeping up to date with his family and I was looking good for him and I was giving him enough sex and complimenting him enough and showing up enough. And then I wasn't getting that in return. It was, well, those are his expectations of me because I'm his wife. And my expectation of him was just that he paid the bills. And that's terrible because that's not a relationship. That's I don't know what
It's
you
a
call it.
contract.
It's a contract. Yeah, there you go. It's and so yeah, I think you can absolutely give too much of yourself in romantic partner situations. If I want to take it to a not so serious note and just say in dating, absolutely, you can give too much in dating right off the bat. I think I learned this as I got divorced and I started dating. People ask, why are you divorced? Why are you single? All of these things. And it was something that I realized that I didn't need to give all of that up right at that moment because I didn't know that guy. I couldn't trust him. He hadn't earned me sharing that experience and that story with him. He hadn't earned me giving all of my efforts to him yet. And just as I hadn't earned that from him either because we didn't have enough time together. And I think like it's weird because I'm with this beautiful man now. And whenever I met him, I saw him matching my efforts, but in a very slow manner. And it wasn't a love bomby type of way. It wasn't very showboaty. He was so, and it still is very calm and just very slow. And just being around him just like brings so much calmness and warmth and peace, at least to me. And it was so different because previously in dating, I felt like all of these guys just wanted me to just like give it all up to them, and not just sexually, but even just like share all of your traumas, share why you're divorced, share your time with me, share all of this. And I was like, you haven't earned it. You don't get that from me yet. And I didn't learn that for a very long time. Like off the bat, I came in like, oh my God, yeah, let me share all this with you. I've been wanting to tell somebody this. I've been wanting to share this with somebody. And then I slowly learned, like, you know what? I don't need to give it up. I don't need to do that. And then with John, he's matched my efforts, but I don't even know how to explain. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it with about him. He's giving me a thumbs up. But it's weird because I don't feel like with John I could give too much, if that makes sense. I feel like the every time I give to him, he gives just as back. So it's like I pour into him and I'm a little bit empty and he pours right back into me. And having a relationship like that is so cathartic and so healing. And so in a sense, that's why I said yes hesitantly, because it's like yes, you can. You can give too much to the wrong person, but to the right person, I don't think you can, because you're always going to continually be filled up to be able to give more. If I'm that's making any kind of sense.
Yes, I like the thought of, keeping track of your relationship. Something that you said that really stuck with me is that relationship, you're careful about saying that you can give too much. And I like that answer, right? And here's why I like that answer. Is because that, yes, relationships are give and take, and they're always give and take. I mean, listen, there's sometimes where we can't 100, we're ourselves are going to feel down and we're not going to be at 100%, so to speak. I'm not going to be giving like ready to give my all and maybe give all my energy to you that day because unfortunately I'm having a bad day, right? Or it's a really rough time. And sometimes your partner literally steps in and they take care of you, right? They take care of you emotionally. They take care of you in all facets of how you're feeling or wherever you need that emotion of that day. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's the same for your partner. Your partner is not feeling 100%, and you have to give maybe what you feel is more that day than another, right? But I do agree as well that there is a toxic level of where, okay, I'm giving and giving and giving, and I'm not sort of receiving anything, or the effort's not being there. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
will say that there is a nuance of maybe a sense of love language, right? Some people don't have the same love language as you, and maybe the way that they give or make that effort isn't the same as yours. Um, but that's something you got to suss out on the early in the stages of a relationship. I think is something that's really important to discuss, which, I won't get into that because I feel like that's a topic of another time, which is love languages. So yeah, it's important to learn your partner's love language and understand where they're coming from, right? Because if you do have that compatibility with your partner, it's great. Or maybe simply that your partner is more of a gift giver, or the yeah, and that's the way that they show love rather than being physical touch. And if that's okay with you, then that's fantastic. But you also have to make the sacrifice for your partner's love language as well, if you really care. If you really want to be with them. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother topic. Getting back to giving too much of yourself. Yeah, you can feel this level. I mean, I've been in a relationship where it was a toxic relationship. Um, in certain cases where I gave so much of myself and then it was never enough. I was told that I didn't love him enough. I was told that I didn't offer up enough, and I mean, it was like even when um I don't know. It was a sad thing to sort of go through. Now my brain was like running through that particular situation. But then there was another time where I wasn't feeling. I was in a relationship, and I was going through a lot. And it was difficult some days for me to give a lot of myself. And I don't know if the person didn't feel like I was making too much effort or how I was feeling. And quite frankly, they didn't take the time to ask me, how are you feeling? What's going on here? They would just sort of keep it to themselves. And, I felt kind of sad with that because it became something that was looked at as maybe I wasn't giving a lot of effort, when in reality it's like I had a lot on my plate, of which they did know, but they never asked like maybe how I was
Mm-hmm.
doing, and take that into consideration. I feel like they were very, I mean, it was only their second serious relationship, so I guess they were, learning from that factor. Um, but yeah, I think that it's very possible for somebody to give too much, and I feel like she did give a lot, right, in that particular relationship. So I don't necessarily blame her. I do wish that she communicated, which is very important in a relationship, to see how somebody's feeling. Because maybe there's a reason as to why that person's not giving a lot. And I'm not applying this, by the way, just so viewers know, to Autumn's situation. I very much know that that is not the situation. So I wanted to clarify that just in case people don't feel like I'm talking at you. I'm just giving my experience of my.
Feel really judged right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a hey, I'm talking to, because out of my brain that just popped up, I was like, people, I hope you don't know that I do want to clarify that anytime, me and Autumn are sort of talking, it's not me trying to talk at her or her talking at me, or comparison of the relationships, but more or less
Mm-hmm.
talking about the things that we've gone through as well. So I just, little disclaimer there. But I did also want to touch on a point that you actually kind of, you sparked something deep inside me,
Mm.
and this is something that that I learned, and that is understanding that when you give a lot of yourself, understanding when that point becomes, because when you're first dating someone, I did the same thing. I was with somebody and I was like, wow, somebody I can share all my feelings with, all my thoughts, all my strifes and struggles, and
Mm-hmm.
and uh my happiest moments and my saddest moments, and I'm ready, right, to open this closet of emotion to this
My glass
person.
case of emotion.
Yeah. I was like, "You see this
Anchorman.
door? Well, I'm opening it." And then it just was like a flood of, just.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that. I think we're all just craving somebody to sit there with us and allow us to dump on them that we're not paying, not our therapist.
Listen, and you can dump too much,
You can, yes, absolutely.
for two reasons, right? Sometimes the person emotionally is not like ready for that, right? They're talking, you're having your first coffee, okay? And you just emotionally dumped on this person. Listen, that is
Hmm.
giving too much.
I'm not calling him back.
That is offering way too much. And I feel like I've done that because I'm a person that I really would like. I like somebody that, on a first date, okay? I don't like a lot of the fluff, okay? I'm just going to put it out
Mm.
there. I don't like the conversation of, hey, how's your day? So tell me about the weather. I mean, hey, what's your favorite color? Listen, favorite color, important. Favorite food, sure, important. That being said, I want to hear about when was the last time you cried, right? When was the
Oh,
last time you felt the most happiest in your life? Tell me your favorite childhood memory, right? Like these are things that I feel like are really important because it takes all the surface level away, and it offers me to look at you. And when you're dating somebody, you want your purpose is to get to know that person,
hmm.
and so that's why I'm like, you know what? Get rid of the fluff. Give me all the emotional stuff. That being said, not everybody works that way. I mean, we all sort of set these walls and barriers and stuff to sort of maybe keep us from when we were hurt back in the day, or
Hmm.
maybe to keep us from obviously giving too much information to somebody that can sort of be turned around against us, which I will also, I feel like, get to as a level of why you shouldn't give too much of yourself. But so they're all going to have these particular barriers, or maybe they have their own traumas or tribulations or all the things that they sort of went through in their past relationships. So we have to work on actively breaking down those walls, right? Allowing them to know, it's almost like a dog in a way, right? When an animal's, or just an animal in general, when they're getting to know you, they're never gonna really show you their belly. You know what I mean? Like lay
Hmm.
over and be like, hey, feel free to scratch me. And that's sort of an oversimplification, but kind of getting to know somebody is similar to that, right?
It is.
You're having to let them know that they're safe around you, because the animal has
Hmm.
their guard up, right? Because let's say that dog has their guard up because they don't want to be harmed and they don't really know you. But the minute they start, getting to know you and they starting to love on you, so to speak, right? They do what's called the love bug, right? Where they show you the stomach and they lay there and they're like, scratch me. Um, yeah, so you have to work at this how would you say, this particular situation very delicately, right? You have
Hmm.
to not give too much so soon. And I've learned to do that throughout my relationships because trust me, I've had situations where I emotionally dumped, and rather than that becoming like, I thought like, the girl would also like that because, guys aren't always emotionally or looked at as emotionally available. Um, and I thought that would be accepted, and instead it was like I looked like probably like Mr. Crazy Talk over here, that I was over here talking about how I felt and the things that I went through in my life, and no, you have to ease it in. Now, I did also want to talk about the giving too much of yourself, still getting to know the person, but in the way of, sometimes in life, it is important to keep certain things to yourself until you know that that person is how would you say, worth opening up to, so to speak. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's the right term, but a person that you can trust. You know, there's also something that these animals do that is wonderful, and is that they sort of are on the guard. And I think it's important to have not be too on the guard, but have a certain level of safety net for yourself to be careful that the person that you're talking to isn't going to use that vulnerability as a weapon. So
Mm-hmm.
you can give too much of yourself and too early on. So yeah, in a way that we have to make people work for getting to know them, because if we don't, we're opening ourselves for a possibility of, you know, hurt, getting hurt because we don't necessarily know that person. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if this is rambling, but how do you feel on this take, Autumn? I need to know. You know, I'm just sitting here
No,
looking at you
I'm
like, tell me.
I'm all for this take.
Okay.
I agree with it. Not that you should go in worry of people or that you should let your past hurts dictate how you interact with people, but moreover just look at it in the sense of like back to that self-compassion thing of I've worked really hard to get over these hurts. And I've worked really hard to become the person that I am today. And I want to share that with somebody, and I have found somebody to share that with. But before him, I wanted to share that with somebody, and I wanted to make sure that it was somebody who wasn't going to take all of the work that I had done and all the healing that I had done and not hold it correctly and not or not even correctly, I guess, not hold it with the kind of care that I needed. And it's going to be a different level for everybody. Maybe somebody who's been something like me doesn't need somebody to be as, soft as I need John to be because I am a very tender person. As much as I like to put on a front that I'm pretty tough, I'm not. But yeah, I like your thought of just being slow to open up and not coming from a stance of a wariness, but coming from the stance of I need to know who they are. I need to allow them to show me who they are. And based on that, I will, share more and more of myself. And that's not to say don't tell them anything about yourself or, be really rigid about it. But it's those deep things that make you who you are that have shaped your life and have shaped how you view life and how you interact with people. Everybody has reasons behind why they're showing up and participating in life the way that they are. And not everybody deserves to know that depth of your story. And so just being aware, and again I think that goes back to having that self-compassion of having knowing your worth, knowing that not everybody is going to see it, and that just means that's there's nothing wrong with them. They're not toxic, they're not bad unless they act out in toxic or bad ways. But just because they can't see it doesn't mean that they're a terrible person. It just means they're not the right person for you, whether that's relationship with a partner or relationship in friendship. That is what it comes down to. And so having that self-worth kept in your mind and knowing that it's going to take some time to get to know someone's true characters, and it's going to take some time to know if you can share that part of yourself. And it's like, just like teasers, like we all love trailers for movies. We all love seeing that commercial and be like, "Oh my god, I'm so excited to see that movie." And it's like that anticipation builds up to it, but we haven't accessed the right date yet to be able to see that movie. Like that's kind of how I view it. Is it's like show enough of yourself to show who you are. Show enough to get, see if you guys vibe well, but then don't reveal all of it all at the same time. Like reveal it later on whenever you've realized like, yeah, I can trust him or I can trust her, they're a good person. Like when I tell them this, I know that they're going to handle it in a good way. So yeah, I rambled on, but
No, no.
there's
I
that.
I like the perspective of, you know, date not unlocked yet, right? I was like, for all my video game nerds out there, okay, all you gentle souls, It's almost like you have to really search for the background lore of the video game, you know.
Hmm. I love that.
You just you got to maybe jump in that corner and check this, or maybe go through that sludge and check through that. I mean, that's kind of hopefully that's a a good imaginative take for you nerds out there. I don't, not me, of course. To work for the lore for the game. If not, you're not going to know the full story. um, but I hope everybody's been enjoying this sort of. I just feel like we're shedding a lot of emotion here, right? We're dropping it at the front door. And saying, "Hey guys, are we giving too much of ourselves? Really, this episode was for us and not for you." No, I'm just kidding. We wanted to ask you guys, are we giving too? No, I think that obviously even in recording a podcast, we this is something that me and Autumn discuss, right? Like, what is giving too much, right? Putting up boundaries so that way you guys aren't taking too much of a look at it, at us as well, or not too much of a look. But my point is like we got to save some things for us, right?
Hmm.
But what we love so far, at least what I love personally, I'll speak on my behalf about this podcast, is it allows us to sort of connect to people and talk about our lives and hopefully, connect with you guys. And so that way you individuals out there are sort of like looking at yourself, and maybe this helps you self reflect, or maybe you see a friend in the situation and you could maybe give them sort of advice or some sort of life, like, hey, listen, or maybe it makes you feel like not alone, and that to know that you're not the only person that goes through any of these particular situations, male, female, I don't care who you are out there. Um, we all can connect on an emotional level, whether you would like to believe it or not. We've all had similar situations, maybe at least one person out there, and I hope that we're connecting to you guys. That being said, we're not done. We're gonna do one little topic here. Now it's gonna change a tone, so that's why I want to make it a little bit lighter. Can you give too much of yourself working at work? Is that a possibility? This is now going to be a little bit lighter. I feel like Autumn, give us an example out there. Again, I lead the question off to you just because, she just does such a great job of,
Really on the
trudging
spot this
these
podcast.
topics. Or I could do it, but you know what? Again, I'll set up the question: can you give too much of yourself in work situations?
In strictly professional settings, barring that
Yes.
you're not, at work sharing all of your deep dark secrets with your coworkers. Hopefully you're not. Um, yes, yes, I think that you can. I think if you're allowing work to interfere with outside of working hours, then yes. Obviously, if you're a business owner or there's circumstantial things that you can't be so strict on that. But yeah, I definitely think you can. In a nutshell, absolutely. You can let it affect how you treat others because you're giving too much of yourself and all you see is your identity based in your work and you can't see your identity outside of it. You can give too much of your time so that you don't have enough time to give to other people. You can give too much energy so then when you're home you have nothing else to give. And it's kind of hard to be too critical of that because that is literally how you maintain your life. Without our jobs, we don't get the lifestyle that we have. So it's really really hard to set like you shouldn't do that because I think there's some compassion and some grace there. But I also think that the reason we work so much is to have the life that we have with the people in it. And maybe there needs to be more consideration towards that of I'm doing this for a reason, and if the reason is my people, then I need to make sure I've got enough reserved for them too. Because it's not enough to only focus on work for your people, because at some point you might not have those people if that's your whole mindset.
Yeah, on that note, right? I wanted to say that yes, you can as well. That's my answer too. Yes, you can.
End of podcast. We're done.
And
Bye.
and that's it. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, you can give too much of yourself, and how is that possible? Well, there's a such thing that people like to say work-life balance, but
Mm.
one thing that my organizational behavior professor had taught me, just some 2 years ago, um, she taught me that she really is into looking at organizations, right, and sort of breaking down what are the issues in today's work life, and it was really great because we got to look at that, right, and understand obviously the behaviors of an organization. Hence the name of the class. But no, one of
Wild.
the things that really stuck with me was that now we have to start looking at life, not work life balance, but life work balance, right? Putting life
Mm.
first and understanding that work should not be the end all be all. I understand, there are perspectives where you have to give a lot. Listen, it takes a lot of effort to find success. Okay, some people are lucky. What can I say? That just happens in life. You know what I mean? And that's nothing to be envious over. It's nothing to be jealous over. So I did want to state that. That also being said, though, it does take a massive amount of effort to find success. Hell, you know what? I'm still working for it, and I'm sure maybe, Autumn's still working for it, right? Whatever we define success at, it's at its different levels. That being said, you also have to make sure that you're reflecting and understanding that your life really does come first, because at the end of the day, I don't care whether you're religious or not, you're not taking your iPhone with you to the grave. I mean, if you want to get
Mm-hmm.
buried in it, but here's the issue: you're not gonna really be on it. You know what I mean? Then the battery's gonna die, and then you got two deaths in one. Anyway, the point being is that you have to balance yourself, because if not, you're going to give too much of yourself. You're going to burn out, or life's going to happen so fast that if you have a family life, you're going to miss out on your daughter's birthday. The small, even the small moments. Let's take out the big moments of life like graduations and stuff. Sometimes it's about the little moments, and you're going to miss out on those because you're putting so much effort into work, and you're giving so much of yourself that you're not balancing that life and being able to see all that's around you. You're not taking a step back, because you know what's wonderful about the journey is that it's not about the place that you reach, but it's about obviously the full journey and the scope of the adventure of it, right? And
Mm.
so make sure that you're taking that chance, or maybe you're a single gentleman or miss, or whatever, and you're going through life, and you're so focused on success that you're not allowing yourself to emotionally be vulnerable for people, or even just remotely have friendships or get in relationships. You're not going to have time for that, because why? You're giving too much of yourself to your work. So
Mm.
it was a little bit lighter. Hey, I have stories upon stories about also giving too much effort or too much of myself in a work environment like retail. You could also work super hard and you work your finger to the bone, all for maybe you wanted at least just a sliver of recognition and or just respect, and you don't even get that, and in that situation, yes, you're giving too much of yourself.
Mm.
That being said, we are finally coming to a close, and I hope that everybody has been enjoying this episode to its fullest, to its fullest extent.
Toby,
um
my cat, would meow.
She was holding her cat up. For those of you who can't see,
She,
to the
she won't
camera,
say anything.
and she wanted her to say, good night. Everybody have a
Harley
wonderful.
says I don't give enough treats.
Oh, well, look at that. See, so Autumn
Yeah.
doesn't give enough, and she's exposed here, and yeah, we're going to end it like that. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't given enough to the lovely Squeaky Door since the beginning of this
Oh,
episode. So I
squeaky
do
door.
really feel bad, Squeaky Door. For those of you who don't know, my door does squeak, and on moments of this podcast, I get interrupted. So maybe Squeaky Door gives too much. He talks too much. You know what I mean? Any.
Yeah, yeah. Or you don't give him enough WD 40.
That is true. That is true. But it's just one of those toxic relationships.
It is. Cut
I
him
just
out.
can't
Take
let
your
him
door
go.
off.
That being said, I love you guys all very much. And I have to remind you, please, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, so that way you're knowing of when we're uploading. We're gonna upload every month, once a month. So just keep aware.